Human knuckles clenched bone-white, rage igniting Noah's soul as he realized that the arrogant aliens were choosing war over humanity's thoughtful attempts at diplomacy. Noah Thomas, seasoned Federation diplomat, seethed inside as he landed on Kronos, homeworld of the ill-tempered Klingons. The Klingons were a proud warrior race, long resenting the Federation's efforts to limit their galactic expansion. Ren, a shrewd Klingon diplomat, smirked at Noah mockingly over a chalice of blood wine. The Klingon High Council tires of the Federation's meddling. Many call for us to sever our alliance and unleash the full force of our fleets. The Federation has grown weak. The strong do as they wish, and we Klingons shall carve our own path, Ren sneered. Noah argued ardently for peace, but his words rang hollow. These callous aliens respected only strength, caring nothing for diplomacy. Deep in Noah's gut, icy tendrils of dread unfurled. Both sides were now dominated by vicious warmongers, rapaciously fantasizing about the devastation they would wreak. If war ignited, billions across the galaxy would burn in the flames. Trillions more would suffer endlessly in the aftermath. But one group would never accept such a cruel and pointless fate for the innocence of the universe. When it mattered most, only the humans of the Federation would step up against tyranny and bloodlust. Only humans would risk everything to keep the fragile galactic peace. Noah steeled his spine, knowing the survival of civilization now depended on him alone. As Noah brooded over the Klingon ambassador's brazen betrayal, a Starfleet admiral burst into the room, sweat dripping down his face. "We've lost contact with Epsilon Hydra 7 and Minos Corva. Scans show massive destruction on the surface. The Klingons report similar attacks along their border. An unknown alien force is slaughtering entire colonies." Noah rushed to the bridge of his ship and watched the horrific reports pour in. Charred corpses and burning buildings filled the view screens. Frantic distress calls cut off abruptly as colonies went dark one by one. The attackers were brutal and efficient. They struck without warning, decimating planetary defenses before landing troops to butcher the colonists. Intercepted enemy comms revealed they called themselves the Reavers and reveled in violence for its own sake. There would be no negotiating with such savagery. The Federation Council convened an emergency session, broadcasting it across the galaxy. The pacifist Vulcans urged caution and diplomacy to understand the Reavers' motives. The militant Andorians demanded an immediate retaliatory strike. "This unprovoked aggression cannot stand. The Reavers respect only force. We must hit them back now with everything we've got." Admiral Shran pounded his fist on the podium. "Violence begets violence. We should attempt communication to determine what has driven the Reavers to such desperation," Ambassador Sarek countered calmly. "Perhaps this cycle of destruction can still be averted." Noah watched the fierce debate with growing unease. With the Federation divided, a united defense seemed unlikely. Then the Klingon ambassador strode to the central podium and began to speak. "Let me be clear. The Klingon Empire will not be joining you in this fight. The Federation's border worlds are not our concern. We will not waste Klingon lives to protect your weak and unworthy colonies." He glared around the chamber, as if daring anyone to object. "You have grown soft and feeble, hiding behind treaties and words when the galaxy respects only strength. If these Reavers bring you to your knees, then perhaps you deserve to fall. Kapla." With that, he stormed out, leaving a stunned silence in his wake. Noah felt his last hopes for an Allied stand crumbling. With growing dread, he realized this was exactly what the Klingons wanted, to let the Federation waste itself against this new threat, then sweep in to seize power after. As alarms blared and klaxons wailed, Noah knew the true fight for survival was only beginning. Screams of terror filled the comms as more frantic distress calls poured in from New Jakarta. The human colony was being annihilated by the merciless Reaver onslaught. "This is New Jakarta Defense Command. We are being overrun. Repeat, planetary defenses are failing. We can't hold out much longer." A panicked voice cried out amidst explosions and weapons fire. The feed cut to static, Admiral Talara, a stern Vulcan woman, reported grimly to the Council. Latest scans indicate New Jakarta's orbital platforms have been destroyed. The colony is now completely defenseless. Reaver forces are bombarding all major cities from orbit and landing troops on the surface. Casualty estimates are already in the millions and climbing rapidly. In the council chamber, the news was met with a mix of horrified silence and furious shouting. The Tellarite ambassador slammed his fist on the table. Enough talk. We must send the fleet now before there's no one left to save. The Deltan representative raised her hand. We still don't know enough about these Reavers or their capabilities. Rushing in blindly could be suicide for our forces. We need more time to gather intelligence and devise a proper strategy. Other members quickly took sides, some calling for immediate action, while others preached restraint and caution. The debate grew increasingly heated as precious minutes ticked by. Amidst the chaos, Councillor Amelia Nakamura, the human representative, leapt to her feet. Her voice shook with barely restrained fury. And while we sit here squabbling, millions of innocent humans are dying agonizing deaths. Families are being slaughtered, children are being butchered, and we do nothing. She fixed each councillor with a withering glare. You all claim to be our allies, but where are you now that we need you most? We humans are done begging for your help. We'll defend our own, with or without you. With that, she stormed out of the chamber, leaving a stunned silence in her wake. The remaining human diplomats followed close behind, their faces etched with grim determination. Hours later, a battered Federation fleet dropped out of warp at New Jakarta, the human ships pushing their engines to the limit. But they arrived too late. The colony was a ruin, its cities reduced to molten slag and ash. No signs of life could be detected on the ravaged surface. Captain Mikhail Petrov, a grizzled Russian veteran, clenched his jaw as he surveyed the destruction. My God, we failed them. We failed our own people when they needed us most. His sensor officer looked up from her console, eyes wide. Sir, I'm detecting multiple warp signatures leaving the system. They appear to be human civilian transports and freighters. Looks like some of the colonists managed to evacuate in the chaos. A spark of hope ignited in Mikhail's chest. How many ships? Where are they heading? Scanning now. I count approximately 80 vessels of varying sizes, based on their trajectories. She hesitated, double-checking the readings. Sir, the refugee ships are fleeing straight towards Klingon space. Mikhail felt his blood run cold. Those desperate survivors were seeking asylum from the very allies who had just betrayed and abandoned them. He had a sinking feeling their ordeal was far from over. Jaw clenched with determination, he began snapping out orders to pursue and protect those refugee ships. The refugees were about to fly right into the wolf's den, and Mikhail would be damned if he abandoned them again. Noah's communicator beeped urgently. It was Amelia, her voice shaking with barely contained emotion. Noah, New Jakarta has fallen. The colony it's just gone, wiped out. Noah closed his eyes, a wave of grief washing over him. Millions of lives snuffed out in an instant. Amelia continued, but some of the colonists managed to escape. They're heading your way, Noah, hundreds of thousands of refugees in barely space-worthy ships. They're coming to the Klingons for help. Noah's eyes snapped open. What, why? Where else can they go? The Federation fleet won't reach them in time. Please, Noah, you have to convince the Klingons to grant them asylum, to protect them. It's their only chance. Noah glanced at Ren, who had been listening to the conversation with a sneer on his face. The mighty Klingon Empire is not a charity for every stray human who comes begging at our door, Ren scoffed. Your refugees are not our concern. Something inside Noah snapped. He rounded on Ren, his voice shaking with fury. Not your concern? The Klingons never shut up about honor, but where is that honor now? When your allies need you most, you'd rather let them die than lift a finger to help. Ren bristled at the accusation, but Noah pressed on. What good is all your strength if you're too cowardly to use it for anything but your own gain? if you abandon your friends the moment it becomes inconvenient. For just an instant, Noah thought he saw a flicker of shame in Wren's eyes, but it was quickly replaced by a mask of indifference. Before Wren could reply, alarms blared throughout the command center. A Klingon officer shouted from his console. Multiple warp signatures detected entering the system. Configuration matches the Reaver profiles. They're pursuing a group of smaller ships. Designations unknown. The main view screen lit up, showing a ragtag fleet of human refugee ships desperately fleeing a swarm of Reaver warships. The Klingon fleet mobilized, disruptor cannons and torpedo bays priming to fire, but they did not engage. Noah watched in horror as the Reavers began picking off the human ships one by one. The refugees' meager weapons were all but useless against the Reaver onslaught. Desperate, one human ship, its hull already breached and venting atmosphere, swung around and rammed a Reaver vessel, the collision consuming both in a blinding fireball. Noah turned to Wren, his expression a mix of disgust and despair. "The humans are dying with honor, Wren. Where is yours?" Wren hesitated, his jaw muscles working. For a long, tense moment he stared at the view screen, watching the Reavers tear into the defenseless human ships. Then he whirled to the tactical officer, barking an order in harsh Klingon. "All ships engage the Reaver fleet. Target their weapons and engines. Draw their fire away from the refugee ships." The Klingon fleet surged forward, disruptors and photon torpedoes lancing out to blast the Reaver ships to molten fragments. Birds of prey and cruisers swooped and dived, drawing the enemy's attention. A Reaver dreadnought swung its massive bulk towards the refugees, its energy banks glowing as it prepared to fire. But a Klingon battle cruiser rammed it head-on, the two ships exploding in a blinding flash. The Klingons took up defensive positions around the remaining human ships, their hulls pockmarked and scorched, but still fighting with every weapon they had. The refugees limped towards safety, their saviors paying for each kilometer in blood. But the Reavers kept coming, heedless of their losses. For each ship the Klingons destroyed, 3 more seemed to take its place. The void lit up with the hellish light of antimatter explosions as cruisers and frigates died fiery deaths. On the planet below, Noah and Wren watched the display grimly, the command center shaking as Klingon ships winked out one by one. Consoles exploded in showers of sparks, officers shouting damage reports over the din. Softly, almost too low to hear over the chaos, Wren said, "You were right, human. Honor demands that we fight." He glanced at Noah, a strange mix of respect and resentment in his eyes. "The Klingon fleet will give its last drop of blood to hold the line, but I fear it will not be enough." Hours crawled by, each second an eternity of fire and death. The Klingon ships fought like cornered beasts, savage and unyielding, but even their renowned ferocity had its limits. One by one, the mighty warbirds fell, until barely a handful remained. But finally, blessedly, the tide of Reaver ships slowed, then stopped. The last few enemy vessels fled, harried by vengeful Klingon pursuers. The battle was over. The Reavers had been repelled. But the cost? The Klingon fleet was a shattered ruin, more than half its ships blasted to clouds of cooling debris. Thousands of warriors had died, their bodies consigned to the void. The Federation fleet arrived, too late to do more than assist with search and rescue. As the human ships darted among the wreckage, Noah saw Wren watching them with empty eyes. Something had gone out of the Klingon commander, some vital spark extinguished. In the aftermath, the Klingon High Council agreed to rejoin the war against the Reavers, but there were no cheers, no celebration, only a grim, battle-weary determination to see the fight through, no matter the cost. As Noah prepared to depart, Wren clasped his arm in a warrior's grip. "The Klingon people will not forget what happened here," he said roughly. "We will fight, and we will die, but the Reavers will be destroyed. This I swear on my honor as a Klingon." Noah nodded, returning the grip fiercely. For a moment the two stood united, no longer Federation and Klingon, but simply soldiers bound by a common cause. The story closes with a battered but unbroken Federation Klingon fleet setting out to face the Reaver menace. They are bloodied and diminished, uncertain of victory, but determined to stand together against the oncoming storm. The final scene shows Noah on the bridge of his ship, staring out at the endless expanse of stars. He can't help but wonder how many more will have to die before the Reavers are finally stopped. And beneath that, a deeper fear, that the fragile alliance between old enemies will fracture under the strain of total war. If you finish this story, please subscribe and like the video. Then leave a comment that says, "I liked the story," and I will heart every single one of them. It really helps me. Thank you for your time.